What's up, guys? We're here to go over UFC 290, Volkanovski versus Rodriguez. But first, I'm going to go over the results of UFC on ABC 5. Um, my biggest play on the card, my 1 unit play on Jack Jenkins plus 150. That one hit, so that was a unit and a half profit right there. And I had a play on Austin Lane. It was a half unit, but obviously that fight ended up being a no contest, so it was a no action for me. I got my money back. And originally I had a Trevor Peak and Tetsuro Tiara 2-man parlay that was plus 150 that I had a half unit on. And but that was originally that was before Peak's opponent got changed, and then Tiara obviously first it was Peak and Tiara, then Peak's opponent got changed. So then it was just Tiara, and then Tiara dropped off right before the fights that day after weigh-in. So got my money back on that, and I had a few parlays, but I just had probably like $50 on each of those. None of those hit. Yeah, so that was pretty much it for that card, man. But I ended up coming out with a little over a unit profit. So I wish it was most of my money was on underdogs there. I was pretty confident in Lane and Jenkins looked pretty good. It was a close fight, man. I could see the judges giving it to either of those guys. I thought Jenkins clearly won round 1. I thought Jamal clearly won round 3, and I think the second round could probably go either way. So it was a very close fight, man. I think Jack was just having a little bit of trouble, getting around the reach of Emmers and stuff. But it was a close fight. But I'm glad that play hit for me. And what else? So yeah, please like and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, what I do is I go over each fight and give my prediction for the fight, who I think is going to win. And at the end of the video, I give out my bets for free, which is something not a whole lot of channels do anymore. I put myself out there, put all my picks, my bets. If I do bad, y'all all know about it, because if you're paying somebody for bets, or if you watch a channel and you're not paying them for bets, then you don't really ever know if their bets hit or not, because you're not paying for them. So, or at least you don't know ahead of time if they actually even had the bets. So, so yeah, man. Whenever I'm having a bad night, everybody gets to know about it, I guess. I did horrible on my picks last week. I forgot to talk about that. I think I only got like 4 or 5 of the fights right. It was a terrible one, but at least the money came in. So, and yeah, and I'm also available on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, YouTube, Rumble, all the major streaming platforms. Not many people listen to me on those. It's mostly all on YouTube. The contest is still going on for Strickland versus Magomedov. If you go back and watch that video, the beginning of that video, you can put your picks for the contest. But just put them on that video. Don't put them on this one, because it's hard enough for me to keep up with this stuff as it is. But whenever y'all give y'all's picks on the Magomedov Strickland video, I just screenshot them so I know who came in before who and whatever, and we're gonna find out. Y'all find out on my next video if anyone won it, and that contest is for Magomedov versus Strickland, that card. So if you're interested in finding out what that was, go back to that video, watch the beginning. I'll tell you how it works. You can put in your picks, try to win what I had up as a prize. And what else? I guess that's about it for all that stuff. So yeah, UFC 290. It's going to be a pretty good card, man. A lot of good fights on this card. Let's see what fights we lost real quick. Man, it was like 107 degrees down here in Texas today. Yeah, super hot. It's gonna get worse too. We lost Devison Figueiredo versus Manel Cop, and Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Saaiman. Saaiman's opponent got replaced with Terrence Mitchell. So, but I didn't even realize that it's kind of last minute that I realized that they added this tiara fight to this card, um, which I've been going over tape for tiara for a few weeks now. So I mean, I know all that, and I do remember Edgar Chairez from the Contender Series, and I have done a little bit of research on him before too. So, well, let's get into it, man. First up, we got Edgar Chairez taking on Tatsuro Tiara. Chairez is 27 years old. He is 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. He is 10-4, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And yeah, he got beat on the Contender Series by Clayton Carpenter. He did land some good shots at the beginning of that fight. I think he swole Clayton's eye up. Looked pretty tough at first. But yeah, if Clayton can out grapple him, which Clayton definitely did out grapple him, Tiara definitely can, in my opinion. This guy is a very good, he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Pretty sharp boxing. He hits really hard. He's got some power. But he hasn't really, he didn't even win the fight on the Contender Series, and then he went back and fought, a 5-7 guy, on the regional scene, and then an 8-4 guy in the in Fury. So that one's a little bit more impressive than the 5-7. So, but he did miss weight his last time out, so that's something to keep an eye on. He is a pretty good sized guy for the weight class. I think this actually is a catch weight at 130 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe you don't have to worry about his weight so much. He's taking on Tatsuro Tiara. He is 23 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He is 13-0 and 3-0 in the UFC. And yeah, Tiara's an amazing grappler with very good submissions, really good submission defense. He's looked better every time we've seen him. He's very long for the weight class. He'll have a 3-inch reach advantage here. Or wait a minute. No, that's not true. Chairez has got the reach advantage. Sorry, I misread my stuff. He has very good top pressure, and it's hard to get off of you. Get him off of you. Not get him off. Gross bastard. He throws good straight strikes on the feet. He fights very long. If that makes sense. He can grapple for 3 rounds, no problem. This is very much a clash of styles, grappler versus striker, and usually the grapplers come out on top in that. And, the game plan's always the same with Tiara. He's going to come out there, he's going to take you down, he's going to get that submission. And, even though he primarily grapples, he has, held his own on the feet at times. I think in the CJ Vergara fight, he was landing some good shots, and he's definitely up to par as far as handling himself on the feet for a little bit. And I'm definitely going to be taking Tiara to win. I'm going to say by sub, round 1, man. That's a pretty safe pick for him. Next up, we got Cameron Saaiman taking on Terrence McKinney. Or Terrence Mitchell, sorry. Boy, that heat's getting to me again. Cameron Saaiman is 22 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. He is 8-0 and 2-0 in the UFC. So, they don't at this time have the lines up for this fight, so I wasn't able to find those. They don't have them up on the one that I was using anyway to put all my stuff together. I was using Bovada this week. Actually, I can check right now real quick. Let's see if they got them up yet, because I haven't looked at them today. That way, I know one of you guys was... I do appreciate you guys, because you guys have been reminding me, like, hey, man, no time steps, what the fuck, And obviously, I mean to do that. Sometimes I forget. And also, you guys have asked that I kind of give out the lines, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I mean to do it every time, and I forget to, write them down or whatever. So let me see if they got it up yet. Yeah, they still don't have it up on Bovada, man, for this Saaiman fight. So yeah, man, I had my doubts about this guy after his debut, because he was giving up a lot of takedowns in that fight and making a lot of mistakes in the grappling, but he did eventually come around and, kind of get his own grappling in. But, and then he hit his opponent with an illegal knee to the face, a just obvious, illegal shot. I don't think they should have let that fight continue, after that. It was pretty close up until that point, but he got an immediate finish after they started the fight again. So I don't think the guy got over the illegal knee, but I wasn't really sold on him, but he did impress me in his next fight against Mana Martinez. And even though the fouls were piling up in that fight as well, man, he was very effective with all his kicks. His striking looked very sharp. And his game all around looked very, really great. And maybe it was the debut, jitters, octagon jitters, in his debut that he was kind of making a lot of mistakes, being nervous. Great cardio, very fast, moves in and out very well. Uses good push kicks, very hard kicks to the body, and hard kicks to the dick. There were a lot of those in his last fight. I think he kicked Martinez low like 3 times in that fight, and then poked him in the eye several times too. So yeah, man. He lost a point in both of his last 2 fights. So I mean, that kind of tells you, I mean, he's got a few things he's got to watch out on, man. I think it's because he throws those low kicks up high to the inside of the thigh a lot, man. So it's almost like he's aiming for it, but I don't think that's what he's intending to do. And he showed he's very tough. Mana busted him up in the first round, landed some good shots on him. He was bleeding out of his nose. He's young. He's going to be constantly improving. He pressures guys really well. He pushes a really good pace, man. He's always moving, always throwing. It's very impressive, man. And yeah, definitely for such a young guy. So he's taking on Terrence Mitchell. He is 33 years old, 5'10". We don't have his reach on Tapology. He is 15-2, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And yeah, he's going to be the bigger, longer guy. They don't have a reach for him, but I imagine since he's 5'10" in the bantamweight division, he's going to have a pretty good reach. He's really tall and skinny. And he got knocked out on the Ultimate Fighter show. I think that was like in 2016 or something, by Kai Kara-France. And yeah, looking at his record, it looks like he took a year off, and then he had 1 fight, and then he took another few years off before getting back on like a regular schedule. So maybe he was debating on getting out of fighting at that point or whatever. All of his wins have been by finish. He is pretty exciting, man. He's on the Alaska fight scene. I forget what that, I don't remember what they're called, but, where was I at? But so the most experienced guy that he has fought has had like 5 or 6 total fights. Lately he's had a lot of quick submission wins. He fought most of his career at flyweight. He's also fought at lightweight, and his last fight was at bantamweight, which is what this fight's supposed to be at. It's hard for me to really say how good his skills are, based on the horrible competition that he's been taking on. The best guy that he's fought has been, Kai Kara-France, and of course he got knocked out very quickly in that fight. He has looked amazing in all these fights though, and I do think he'll have a good advantage in this fight with his height and his reach, and probably in most fights that he's going to have in this division. But I got to go with what I know, man, and what I know is that Cameron has the striking advantage and has looked amazing against tougher competition. So I'm going to take Cameron to get the win by decision. Yeah, so I'll go with that. And next up, we got Jimmy Crute taking on Alonzo Menifield 2. And this should be a exciting fight while it lasts. Jimmy Crute is 27 years old, 6'2", with a 74-inch reach. He is 12-3-1 and 4-3-1 in the UFC. And he is a minus 103, so it's almost a pick'em. A lot of people were very high on Jimmy when he started his career in the UFC. He's a big, strong guy. He's got good submissions and pretty good grappling. The only win that I was really impressed with was, the win over Michael Ozacek. I believe did he submit him? Yeah, it was with a Kimura. And, he's not on a very good run right now, man. He got knocked out by Anthony Smith, Jamal Hill, and then there was this is the rematch. Him and Alonzo went to a draw last time. And he got destroyed by Menifield early in that fight. He did get some takedowns in the first round, but Menifield got back up and, was really putting a beating on him. And, like I said, he did get a lot of takedowns. He kind of gassed himself out wrestling. And if honestly, if Alonzo had a little bit more time at the end of the first round, he may have finished Jimmy because he just dropped him at the end of the round. And he came out and, put a pretty good show on the first part of the second round. I thought Menifield clearly won the first 2 rounds just on damage. Jimmy definitely won the third round, but they did take a point from Menifield for fence grabbing, and I think that's why it was a draw. Otherwise he would have won the first 2 rounds. but yeah, man, Jimmy's got good submissions, and his striking looks a little sloppy. I don't. It wasn't so much that his striking looked sloppy. It's just that he was gassed out pretty quickly in that fight after, getting several takedowns, and Lonzo kept popping back up, and whenever Jimmy gets gassed like that, he has zero head movement. Man, he was just sitting there eating every shot that menifield hit him with, and that's what kind of worries me about that. He does definitely have the grappling advantage in this fight, though. And he's taking on Alonzo Menifield, 35 years old, 6 foot tall, 76-inch reach. He is 13-3-1 and 6-3-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 115. But yeah, Alonzo definitely has the striking advantage, the power advantage. He dropped crute a lot of times in their first fight. Like I said, Jimmy's head movement was not there, and I thought, even though he got the point taken away, man, that was it was pretty. A lot of fights like that, when the judges do that, sometimes they'll give the fight to the guy anyway, but I guess Crute really did, get the takedowns in the third round, and he definitely won the third round. I wouldn't call it a 10-8 because he wasn't doing much damage, but based off the first fight, I think there's going to be things that Menifield's going to work on. Obviously, he knows how Jimmy was getting him down in that fight, so I believe he's probably going to have the answer for that. I'm sure they worked on that for the past, however many months it's been. And I think I'm going to take Alonzo to get the win by KO here. Other refs would have stopped that fight. When he dropped Jimmy and Jimmy was just getting rocked with every thought or every punch that Alonzo threw. Jimmy was basically out on his feet at some of the time, man. I just think Alonzo's gonna finish him this time, and Alonzo's gonna have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's got 9 wins by knockout on his record, and Jimmy's taken a lot of damage in his last 3 fights, man. So I'm honestly starting to get worried about him a bit. They weren't those 2 knockouts were not. He was really, really, really out of there. Well, I guess the Anthony Smith fight was a stoppage to a leg injury, but the Jamal Hill knockout was pretty devastating, and the damage that he took from a Menifield in the first fight was pretty devastating. So I'll take Menifield to get the knockout. Next up, we got Vitor Petrino taking on Marcin Prachnio. And I'm probably going to catch a lot of bullshit for my opinion on this one. Excuse me. Vitor Petrino is 25 years old, 6'2", with a 77-inch reach. He is 8-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. And Victor is a very big, strong guy, very powerful, 3-inch reach advantage in this spot. 6 wins by knockout on his record. He fought a grappler his last time out, and he actually did get caught with a few good punches in that fight because the guy he fought does not know him to be a striker at all. But Petrino, he's not really a good grappler. He just is very strong, so he kind of out-muscles guys and throws them around. It's not that he's like a good wrestler or anything. It's just that he's super strong. And he did give up some takedowns in that fight. He gave up his back quite a few times. He doesn't check leg kicks at all, which could definitely hurt him in this fight. If you watch Prachnio's last fight, he's deadly with those leg kicks. He'll throw 150 of them, 200 in a fight. And I hope I'm not out of line saying this, man, but I feel like I went back and watched the tape on, these guys. I've known Prachnio from one and, all the other stuff he's done, so I'm very familiar with him. And, Petrino, his striking, honestly, is not very good. He's just kind of wild, and he's not very technical at all. He's just very powerful. He just wings punches, and, based on skill level, I don't agree with this line at all. He's a minus 260 favorite, and, I think the only advantage that he's going to have in this fight is the power advantage, but his striking isn't very good, man. He just wings punches very wildly and waits for guys to come in close and just wings hooks and stuff like that. And it works for him because he's a very powerful guy. But man, I just don't see a minus 260 favorite there. So Marcin Prachnio is 34 years old, 6'3", with a 74-inch reach. He is 16-6 and 3-4 in the UFC, and he's a plus 210 underdog. And I'm sure it's been a few days since I've been doing my notes, so I'm sure that right now he's even more of an underdog. Um, Let me just check and see if it's gotten worse. Nope, it's about the same. A little bit of money has come in on Prachnio. He's like at a plus 205 now. So Prachnio, he's a world class striker. People may not want to admit it for whatever reason. Everyone was really hating on this guy because he came in the UFC and he lost a couple fights. He got finished in a couple fights. He's more experienced. He's fought the tougher competition all over the world. He has better striking technique than Petrino. He's got a karate type style. He's made improvements. He's learned after those, couple knockout losses to fight safer and try to stay out of the way of those big shots. And in his last fight, William Knight just couldn't get anything going, and Marcin just ate him up with the leg kicks until he could barely stand. Marcin has a win over Khalil Roundtree, so I mean that's impressive. Khalil's a very tough guy. His footwork looked much improved. He's very effective with his kicks. The way he throws all of his kicks, it's kind of hard to tell which way he's going with them. Not a lot of wind up. If Marcin can come out and do the same thing he did in his last fight to Petrino, he has a shot to win. And as confusing as this might be to some people, because I don't agree with the line, I'm actually going to pick Prachnio. I won't put him high up in parlays or anything. I understand that I'm probably wrong, but I just don't like the price. And because I'm just not that high on Petrino either. He's a tough guy. He's very powerful. He's undefeated. I get it, but I think that against a skilled striker, he could possibly get exposed, So, and I think the value's on a plus 210 underdog than a guy who's only fought one time in the UFC, that's going to wind up being like a minus 300, 350. And I think Prachnio's the more skilled guy, man. And I know everyone's going to give me shit for this one, but whatever. But that's just my opinion on it. I would probably make all my parlays and then just have Prachnio on the Hail Mary parlay, and then have other ones, that because he's an underdog. I try not to put the underdogs too high up on my parlays. You know what I mean? But I think he's got definitely a good shot at this. I think he does have the better striking, and yeah. So we'll see if he's turned the corner. Next up, we got Kirk taking on Esteban Ribovics. And Kirk is 29 years old. He's 5'10 with a 75-inch reach. He is 11-5 and 1-1 in the UFC. And he just seem like, I don't know if maybe it's because I was seeing him on the regional scene or whatever, but I just like, when I was doing the tape, I was like, man, hadn't this guy been in the UFC longer than that? And I guess he hasn't, but I don't know. I just thought he had been in the UFC longer and had more fights than that, but yeah, 1-1 in the UFC. He's a plus 161 underdog. Kirk lost to Damon Jackson his last time out by submission. He's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here. He's got very long arms, for his size and for the weight class. He has 6 submission wins, 4 wins by knockout. He fights very long. He has good boxing. He has struggled with the takedown defense at times. He does throw good knees up the middle when he's being pressured. He did land one of those on Damon Jackson. And he's moving up to lightweight here, so I'm curious to see how he's going to look, better or worse. I imagine he's going to be, pretty good size, but I guess moving up, he's probably in the right weight class. He's a pretty good big flyweight, or featherweight, sorry. Doesn't seem to be, a very good grappler in the UFC, even though he's got those wins by submission. He's not very good off of his back, that's for sure. And he does like to keep it on the feet for the most part. He's going to be taking on Esteban Ribovics. He is 27 years old, 5'10 with a 69-inch reach. He's 11-1 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 197 favorite. And all of his wins have been by finish, both submissions and knockouts. I wasn't very high on him coming into the UFC, but he made a really good account of himself. He did struggle with the takedowns against a bigger, stronger guy in Radzhabov, but he had his moments in that fight. He's a very slick striker. He did hurt Radzhabov a lot of times, and he was getting up. He wasn't being controlled on the ground for very long. He was getting up at times. And he's a very slick striker, very powerful. And yeah, I think his debut was on short notice, man. That was a short notice opponent for him. He didn't have time to prepare for that. He was going to fight somebody completely different. And I expect this fight to stay on the feet. He has a really good Kimura, man. He uses it, constantly. As soon as he's taken down, before he hits the ground, he's reaching for that Kimura lock. And it's pretty cool, man, how he does it. He's very good at it. He uses it to sweep, to get up, and to finish. I think he's going to be better anywhere the fight goes here, honestly. And unless Kirk just looks like a completely different guy at lightweight and a monster, it's possible. I don't think Kirk's going to have the wrestling advantage here. I don't think he's going to be able to get Esteban down. And I like the price of Ribovic, and I'm definitely taking Esteban to win. And I'm going to say he gets the win by second round knockout, since all of his fights have been by finish. Or maybe he'll hurt Kirk and then jump on rear naked choke or something like that. Ribovic's going to definitely have the speed advantage as well in this fight. He's very fast, and yeah, I'm going with him. Next up, we got Yasmin Jauregui. Taking on Denise Gomes. I'm just going to call her Yasmin because her last name's tricky. Yasmin is 24 years old. She's 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. She is 10-0 and 2-0 in the UFC. And so this is one of the few female fighters that I'm willing to invest in. She has a very high, high level fighter. Very well rounded. She's a finisher. She has 7 wins by knockout. Doesn't have any wins by submission though. In her debut, man, her opponent, and her both showed that they were super talented fighters. It was an amazing fight. You could tell they're very, very talented fighters coming in, their first fight in the UFC, and they were way up on the card. And, then Yasmin followed it up with a finish over Estela Nunes, who's a very good striker. And, Yasmin's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. She throws great combinations, very technical and accurate with her strikes. She's very fast. She can take a punch. She got dropped in her last fight, and she still got the win. She pushes a really tough pace, great cardio. She never throws just one punch. It's always multiple strikes, which is something you like to see. She hit Nunes with probably a 10-punch combination at one point in that fight. And she has really great ground and pound and elbows from top position. I really can't say enough good things about her. And she's taking on Denise Gomes, 23 years old, 5'2", with a 63-inch reach. She is 7-2 and 1-1 in the UFC. And in her debut against Luke Boomy, she didn't look very good. Of course, Luke Boomy is a very talented Muay Thai striker, and Gomes is a Muay Thai type striker too, but Luke Boomy is from Thailand, everything perfect Thai striker. And it was a rough debut. She looked like a completely different fighter though in her last time out. She's very powerful and explosive. She beat up and knocked out a girl that was way bigger than her in her last fight. What was her name? Bruna Brazil? Yeah. And she was throwing great calf kicks. She was dominant in the clinch, against a way taller girl. And she stuffed all the takedowns. Throws a ton of volume. She had a lot of success, rushing in on her opponent last time, which isn't something she's going to want to do against Yasmin. Yasmin counters very well, and running in on her is going to get you dropped. And I've got to go with Yasmin to get this fight, get the win. And I'm going to say by late finish, man, by TKO. She's the more skilled striker. She's more technical. They're both pretty powerful, and I don't think Gomes is going to be able to take Yasmin down. So I think she'll be stuck on the feet with Yasmin, and Yasmin's going to get the better of the striking and put out the better volume. Sorry, almost knocked my microphone over. Next up, we got Shannon Ross taking on Jesus Aguilar. And this is another one that after breaking down the tape, I into a deep dive and switch up everything I thought about, this fight. So Shannon Ross is 34 years old. He's 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. He is 13-7 and 0-1 in the UFC. He's a plus 185 underdog. So I still haven't figured out why this guy's in the UFC. This was my attitude upon, before watching all the tape. I mean, I've looked into these guys before, but going back and watching the tape, this is my attitude at the beginning is like, I don't know why this guy's in the UFC. He got knocked out on the Contender Series, and they still gave him a shot in the UFC, and he got knocked out again. But he is really tough. The Contender Series fight was a real good fight. He was doing pretty well in the striking before he got knocked out. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here, and I can tell the skills are there, man. It's just his chin that worries me. I've seen him get hurt a lot in his fights, and he's been finished in his last two. He is a pretty good striker. He hits very hard. His head movement could be better, but I don't honestly have too much more to say here because he is very well rounded. He is very talented. He's just had a bad run as of late, and I really had to go back and look, and because at first I'm like, what the hell? Why are they giving this guy a shot? But he is a good fighter, and I really thought they should have put him back on the Contender Series or something and try to build him back up. But now I understand why they're giving him the opponent that he has because, well, y'all see. Jesus Aguilar is a minus 225 favorite. Probably going to wind up being an even bigger favorite than that. He is 27 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach. He's 8-2 and an 0-1 in the UFC. And I don't fault this guy for losing to Tiara. Tiara is an amazing grappler. Jesus beat a real tough guy in the Contender Series, but I don't know, man. That fight was really going back and forth, and he just locked in. He's got a really good guillotine. He's won a lot of fights with it. That's kind of like the one thing he's good at, and he has the shortest reach of all the male fighters in the UFC. He's very strong. He's never won a fight by knockout, but he seems like he would hit pretty hard. He swings very, very big. He has nice double leg takedowns. He likes to keep guys up against the cage and wear on them. He did make some mistakes, and I hope he's worked on that. He tried to trip to the wrong side a couple times on the Contender Series and actually pulled his opponent on top of him. So that shows that maybe he's not really as good of a grappler as they were making him out to be. He has really good ground and pound, pushes a tough pace. I think Shannon's going to have the striking advantage. Aguilar swings really wild. He's not very technical at all. Upon reviewing the tape, I definitely don't think Aguilar should be that big of a favorite at all. If Ross hadn't been finished in his last two fights, I would take him easily because he's the more skilled fighter here, I believe, all the way around. Aguilar really isn't that good, man. The value is definitely on Ross. And based on what I've seen from these guys, I wouldn't put money on either of them. I might put Shannon in one of my big parlays that has barely anything on it. So here's the deal, man. We're all worried about Ross getting knocked out again, but Aguilar's never knocked anybody out, and I actually do think Ross is better on the feet. So, like I said, I wouldn't put money on it, but I'm going to be picking Ross. Just because I was more impressed with what he was doing before he got knocked out on the Contender Series than I was with what I saw Aguilar do on there, where he was kind of going back and forth in the fight, and then sunk in a guillotine choke, and he was making a lot of mistakes and just swinging very wild, and until he finally got his opponent into a guillotine, which is kind of all he's good at. So I'm going to take Ross to win by decision. Next up, we got Sean Brady taking on Della Maddalena. Excuse me. Get some water. It's hot as hell here, guys, but I turned my window unit off for you guys because you can hear it in the background, and it's annoying, so you're welcome. So Sean Brady is... he's 30 years old, 5'10", with a 72.5-inch reach. He's 15-1 and 5-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 150 underdog. So I'm a Brady fan. He's an amazing grappler when he gets it to the ground. Great submissions. He's also huge. He's a big, strong guy. His striking has gotten a lot better since he's been in the UFC. He's going to be at a speed disadvantage here for sure, and his cardio isn't that good. That's one of the few things I can say against him. And I don't think anybody could really argue with me on that. Also Bilal Muhammad really never knocks anybody out, and he knocked Brady out, which is not what I expected. You know, Bilal's good, but I expected him to kind of take Brady down and win that way. You know, it'd be boring, but he actually picked Brady to win that fight, man. I think I even had a small play on him, and you know, I didn't expect Bilal to win that way. You know, and yeah, Brady likes to sit back and counter strike a lot. You know, he does struggle when he's being constantly pressured. That's how Bilal was able to kind of run him down and get the best of him and wear on him. Um, he's not going to want to stand with Jack. You know, Brady will need to get the takedowns to win this fight and look for a submission. But my worry is that even if he does, you know, get Jack down in the first round, or you know, the first round and a half, you know, and then his cardio isn't that great, then you know, what's going to happen? Because you know, I think Jack's cardio's you know good, so he could still knock Brady out in the third round if Brady's tired, and you know, that's the way I look at it. If Brady had better cardio, I would say, yeah, man, he's got a great shot, but there's not a lot of people I would pick over Sean Brady, man. He's very good. So he's taking on Jack Della Maddalena. He's 26 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. He's only got a half-inch reach advantage. He's 14-2 and a minus 180 favorite, and he's 4-0 in the UFC. And so the problem for Brady here is that Jack seems to be the real deal, man. 11 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. Only one fight has ever gone to decision, and that was against Angelusa on the Contender Series, I believe. Half-inch reach advantage, like I said. He's a very talented striker with big power. You know, he's very smooth and technical, you know, with his striking. He switches stances very well. He's good from both stances. He has really good striking defense. He uses his jab very well. He doesn't swing big. He doesn't like wing shots. Everything is nice and straight and accurate. And we saw in the Ramazan and me fight that he can get up if he's taken down, and that he does have some, you know, decent submission defense. And you know, when guys are covering up, you know, whenever he has them hurt and they're covering up, he always throws the knee up the middle, and he usually lands it. He's done it in like probably 3 of his fights in the UFC. And he looked amazing last time out, submitting Randy Brown. You know, didn't just ran right through Randy like he was nothing. And only the second person to ever submit Randy as well. So there's something to be said for that. Sean is definitely a live dog, man. If you're into it, if you're confident. But I got to say, I think the price is right on Jack. I think it's a fair price. He's usually a way bigger favorite, and I'm taking him to get the win by second round knockout. Next up, we got Robbie Lawler taking on Niko Price. And Robbie is 41 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach. He is 29-16 and 14-10 in the UFC, and he's a plus 210 underdog. So yeah, obviously, you know, just the numbers on his record doesn't do him justice. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time, one of the most exciting guys to ever compete in the sport. He's been a champion in multiple organizations. He's fought nothing but killers his whole career, man. You know, 21 wins by knockout on his record. He hits like a truck. You know, in his prime, he was an amazing striker and finisher, and brawler. Really is how he likes to fight. And he did kind of look like the old Robbie when he beat Nick Diaz, but you know, I don't think Nick really took that fight as seriously as he used to. You know, he wasn't able to get the weight down, although Nick did land a lot of strikes. He threw like a record number of strikes in that fight. It just didn't seem like the old Nick Diaz to me. And you know, unfortunately, both of those guys were on their way out. You know, and I said Nick just didn't look like the old Nick. And I hate seeing legends in the sport late in their career losing to guys that they would have destroyed a few years before. You know, Lawler losing to, you know, Barberena, that just isn't a good look, because Barberena is terrible. I hated having to see that, man. And that being said, you know, Robbie is live for a knockout anytime, anywhere. You know, I want Robbie to win this fight. I want to see him go out on a win. You know, he comes out, he pushes a tough pace, he swarms on guys. His boxing is very good. He fights very well when he's in close, you know, with dirty boxing. And it should be a very exciting fight while it lasts, man. And it'll be Robbie's retirement fight, so you know it usually doesn't go well for most guys on those retirement fights. So that's what I'm worried about. And he's taking on Niko Price. He is 33 years old, 6 foot tall, with a 76-inch reach. He is 15-6 and 7-6-2 in the UFC. and a minus 260 favorite. And yeah, Nico's very tough, man. Hasn't been on a good run either, but he's been fighting some killers. So if you look at it, he lost to Vicente Luque. That was 3 years ago. Luque was much better 3 years ago. He had a draw with Donald Cerrone, and I feel like he kind of just didn't really care about winning that fight because it was Cerrone. He lost to Michel Pereira. Pereira won the first 2 rounds. Nico came on strong in the third, and if he had had like another few minutes, I think he would have finished Pereira. He beat Alex Oliveira by decision. In his last fight out, he got knocked out by Phil Rowe, and he was looking pretty good at the beginning of that fight, man. And Phil Rowe caught him, in the third round. So his biggest advantage in this fight is that if he wants to, he can get the takedowns. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He has great cardio. He also pushes a really tough pace. Whoever's the one that's pushing forward and keeping their opponent backing up will be the one winning the fight. Price will be the one throwing more kicks. He throws a lot of calf kicks. He has good sweeps and grappling, but he's not going to have to worry about Lawler trying to take him down. So, unfortunately, based on what I've seen here lately, I've got to pick Price to get the win. But if this was 2016, Robbie would easily beat Price, and I want Robbie to win, man. I'm going to be rooting for him. Yeah, man, and yeah, I'm hoping he wins, man. I'd love to see him go out on a win, but I got to pick Price to get the win. Haven't really decided how though. I guess I'll say by, I hate saying it, but by a second round KO. Hopefully not. Next up, we got Dan Hooker taking on Jalen Turner. And Dan Hooker is 33 years old, 6 foot tall with a 75.5-inch reach. He is 22-12 and 12-8 in the UFC, and he's a plus 175 underdog. Yeah, Dan's an amazing kickboxer. 11 wins by knockout on his record, 7 wins by submission. He's been on a pretty bad run lately, but he's lost to some of the best fighters in the world, and we saw in his last fight that he's definitely, like a level above your average fighter because Puelles just didn't have anything for Dan at all, man. Puelles looked horrible in that fight. And it says on Tapology these guys have the same reach, but I'm not totally sure on that. I'll tell you why in a minute. He moves in and out of the pocket really well. He fights best that way, fighting at range, not brawling, just kind of poking at his opponent with kicks and straight shots. He will have the striking advantage in this fight, I believe, and Dan's got pretty good submission defense, unless he's fighting Islam Makhachev. He has a lot of success with those teep kicks, front kicks for the body. That's what he used to finish Puelles. I want Dan to win this fight. I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's definitely a live dog. If this is going to be a strictly striking affair, and he's taking on Jalen Turner, 28 years old, 6'3", and Tapology, like I said, says that these guys have the same reach, but on UFC, UFC has Jalen with a 77-inch reach, so that means he's got a 2.5-inch reach advantage. But Jalen's, what did I say? 13-6, 6-3 in the UFC. He's a minus 225 favorite, and Jalen is probably the biggest lightweight. I'm pretty sure in the UFC. Like I said, possible he has a pretty good reach. He's coming off of a split decision loss to Gamrot, which he probably should have won that fight, in my opinion. He did more damage. He's powerful. He's got 9 wins by knockout. He's been making tons of improvements, good submission defense. He's never been submitted. So, he uses his reach, very well, has great submissions, fights behind his jab really well and behind his front kicks. In the past, he's had trouble with the takedown defense and with wrestlers, but he's been getting better, and judging from all the training videos he's been putting out on Instagram, he's been working with Khamzat Chimaev, so he's definitely working on that. And I'm thinking he's planning on wrestling in this fight. Dan doesn't really go for takedowns much, so, based on what I've seen lately from Dan and how Turner, and I want Dan to win, but I'm going to be picking Turner, but I think that if it's on the feet, Dan has a really good shot at winning. So if Turner isn't going to use his grappling and try to get the takedowns, he may lose. But I'll take Turner to win by decision. Next up, we got Robert Whittaker taking on Dricus du Plessis. And yeah, Rob is 32 years old, 6 foot tall with a 73.5 inch reach. He is 24-6 and 15-4 in the UFC, and he's a this is one of those ones where I do agree with him being that big of a favorite. Um, and he's got an amazing record, man. He beats everybody in the division other than Adesanya. And their last fight was pretty close, honestly, man. And Rob's an amazing striker, kind of like a karate type style where he darts in and out. He's very fast. 9 wins by knockout. He does have some submission wins on his record, but I don't think he's ever submitted anybody in the UFC. He's a very good counter fighter, and he's got 5-round cardio, which will be his biggest advantage in this fight. Even though it's a 3-rounder, he's got some of the best cardio in the division, and great takedown defense, great head movement. He makes the reads and adjustments very well throughout the fight. The way like he was countering that leg kick of Vittori's every time last time out. Vittori landed that kick like twice, and then from then on, every time he threw it, Rob was decking him with a fucking straight right hand, and or a little check left hook. And in my opinion, Rob's style is kind of tailor made for a guy like Dricus. Rob's going to make him come out there and swing very big and miss and tire himself out. And, Rob's going to bust him up with those little shots and just start hitting harder and harder as the fight goes on. But with a guy like Dricus, anything could happen, man. You never know. And, yeah, Rob creates really good angles on his punches. He'll hold his hands very low so you can't see where his punches are coming from. He's very tricky. And he's a very talented fighter, man. He's one of the best, middleweights to ever do it. So he's taking on Dricus du Plessis. He is 29 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. He is 19-2 and 5-0 in the UFC, and he's a plus 290 underdog. And I'm a big fan of Dricus, both of these guys. And Dricus is a very good kickboxer, hits like a truck. He can wrestle and grapple, but it appears every time he does that he kind of gasses himself out. He did mention, needing to get some work done on his nose because it's all jacked up. He can't really breathe out of it, so that could be part of the reason that he always seems like he's struggling, with cardio and having trouble breathing, in his fights. And maybe he's gotten it fixed, but yeah, his cardio doesn't look very good, but he somehow works his way through it and gets the win. He's very exciting to watch. This should be a fun fight. Hasn't fought anybody like Whittaker yet or even close. Brunson gassed out really quick in his last fight. Dricus will have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. He actually has a lot more submission wins on his record than he does knockouts, which is something you really wouldn't know unless you looked into his early career, before the UFC. And you wouldn't think that from his UFC career either. He's been getting a lot of finishes, so he did get out grappled pretty easily against Derek Brunson, for a while in that fight. I don't believe Rob's going to be trying to grapple, Dricus has, dangerous ground and pound, pushes a crazy pace. He's very unorthodox. Doesn't really care how tired he gets. He just throws everything he's got at you, and which isn't really a good idea, against a former champion with great cardio. Dricus throws real hard elbows in the in close, up in the clinch, and throws great strike at a time. I want to see both of these guys fight Izzy. But I think Rob's going to get the win. I think we're going to see Rob and Izzy, 3. And then maybe Dricus will find his way in there after that. And I'd definitely like to see, Rob, win against Izzy. I was a big Adesanya fan, man. But, yeah, he said some things, man. And I spent a lot of money on his pay-per-views and stuff. And, he's like, calling people dumb crackers and stuff, and I bought like all of his autograph merch, and as a dumb cracker myself, I'm mad at him, so but yeah, I'm going to take Robert to get the win by decision. Next up, we got Bo Nickal taking on Tresean Gore. And Bo Nickal is 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. He's 27 years old. He is 4-0 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 1,200 favorite. And he's 4-0. That's crazy. But this guy's probably the best American wrestler that we've seen, coming to the UFC in a long time. And great jiu-jitsu, very heavy hands. We haven't seen this guy tested yet at all. He hasn't had any trouble at all yet either. Hasn't really faced any adversity. And also hasn't fought, anybody good either. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. All of his wins have been by finish. there's not much more to say. I do worry about, later on down the road, the inexperience catching up to him with the right opponent, but I don't think this is going to be that fight at all. He's taking on Gore. He's 29 years old, 6 foot tall with a 75-inch reach. He is 4-2 and 1-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 725 underdog. Yeah, I've never really been high on Gore, man. He got knocked out by Cody Brundage, who hasn't looked good, before or after that. And, Gore's not very experienced at all either, man. He has a wrestling background, but he's not, nowhere near as high a level as Bo is. I expect Bo to get the takedown, then the submission probably, man. I'm going to say rear naked choke or triangle round one, just like he has been. Yeah, Gore's just not very experienced either, man. So it's just kind of I would say under normal circumstances, if Bo wasn't the high level wrestler that he was, this could be a pretty even fight. But I think Bo's got this, and unfortunately, it's impossible to make any money on it. But next up, we got the co-main event. Looking forward to this one. Alexander Pantoja versus Brandon Moreno 3. If nobody's aware that they've already fought twice. Brandon Moreno is 29 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach. He is 21, 6-2, and 9-3-2 in the UFC. He's a minus 175 favorite. And so quick thing to note here is, like I said, Pantoja has already beat Moreno twice, once by submission, once by unanimous decision. Brandon's got 11 wins by submission, 5 wins by knockout on his record. He's made tons of improvements. And, Moreno's really been hogging up the number one spot in the division since like 2020. Figueiredo never fought anybody other than Moreno in the last 3 years. And Moreno only fought Kai Kara-France and Figueiredo. So the France fight was a very impressive win. He was getting caught a lot in that fight by Kai. But he ended up landing that kick to the liver and, ended up getting the finish. But Moreno's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's got kind of a weird style, kind of herky-jerky with his head movement and stuff. Great boxing. Very fast, uses lots of head movement, lots of feints. Goes to the body a lot with his punches. He does leave himself a little bit open when he does that. So if the right person can time that, he could be into some trouble. And his takedowns have improved a lot, in the last few years. He's never been knocked out. It says on his record that he's never been submitted, but that's when he submitted him, it was in the Ultimate Fighter house, so that technically doesn't go on his record. But, yeah. So, I guess the main advantage that Moreno's going to have is that in the later rounds he's been 5 rounds several times, and he'd probably be fresher late in the 4th or 5th round. So. Pantoja's been getting a lot of finishes here lately pretty quick. So he's taking on Alexander Pantoja. He's 33 years old, 5'5" with a 68-inch reach. He is 25-5 and 9-3 in the UFC. And he's a plus 144 underdog. 10 wins by submission, 8 by knockout. And I believe Pantoja's going to have the grappling advantage in this fight. In their second fight, Pantoja was really getting the better of Moreno everywhere. He broke Moreno's nose in the first round. These guys have made a ton of improvements, both of them, and it could be a very close fight. Pantoja's been on a roll, man. He's beat 3 tough guys in a row, 2 by finish. He beat Manel Kape by unanimous decision. He beat Brandon Royval by submission. And then he beat Alex Perez very quickly with a rear naked choke. And he pushes a really tough pace. He's got really good jiu-jitsu, world class. Like I said, he didn't even have that choke over, on the neck. It was over the chin when he choked at Alex Perez. It was a rear naked choke. He had his back. Perez was standing up, and he had just his arm over the chin, and he was able to submit him like that. So that tells you how tough this guy's squeeze is. So Pantoja has great boxing. He stays on guys from the jump, pushes a really tough pace, like I said, and after a lot of debating, man, I like my underdogs. Y'all know that. And I actually really do think Pantoja has a good chance to win this fight. So, yeah, I'm going to be going with Pantoja to get the win, man. I'm going to say he wins by round 3 submission. He's a live dog, and I like the price. And definitely haven't thrown in some parlays. I don't think I'll be betting him straight up. But I do have I do have a underdog parlay that I put together. So um, next up, we got the main event. Uh, Alexander Volkanovski taking on Yair Rodriguez. And Alexander is 34 years old, 5'6", with a 71.5-inch reach, um, 25-2, and 12-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 425 favorite. Um, 12 wins by knockout, 3 by submission. Coming off a very close fight with Makhachev. A lot of people thought he won it. You know, it was close. He's very, very well rounded. You know, he's going to have the wrestling advantage in this fight, and let's just look at his record, man, and all these guys he's fought. He's basically cleared out his division, other than Yair. You know. So yeah, man, he's beat Max Holloway 3 times somehow. Uh, or I guess they were a draw the first time, weren't they, or something? No, it wasn't. Beat Max Holloway. I thought Holloway won the second fight. That's just my opinion. It was a split decision win for Alex. It was a close fight. Could have gone either way, but I thought Holloway had won that one, and then Holloway looked horrible in the last one. And he beat the Korean Zombie, who didn't have anything for him. Brian Ortega, Jose Aldo, Chad Mendez knocked him out. Darren Elkins, Jeremy Kennedy, Shane Young, a lot of Jamie Malarkey back in the day. um, so yeah, man. I mean, Alex is good everywhere. You know, his striking is pretty solid. Um, it is a little bit worrying to me when a guy goes up a weight class and then has to come back down again. Um, I can't think of a whole lot of examples, in MMA or the UFC that I could give, but I can tell you that like there's been scenarios in boxing where a guy's gone up a weight class or two because they have so many weight classes. He's gone up and then he comes back down and he looks like crap. Because he had a little bit of time getting used to all that. So I doubt it'll be something like that with Alex. It's only 10 pounds. It's not like he's going from lightweight to middleweight. Whatever. But I mean, Alex is pretty solid, man. He's the best featherweight in the world. Probably ever. And I don't know, man. I think he's definitely going to have to use his wrestling. Um, Definitely have to use his wrestling, get the takedowns. Could possibly be a pretty boring fight, unless he gets a submission. Um, he's taking on Yair Rodriguez. He's 30 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. Volkanovski's going to have a half-inch reach advantage. Um, Yair is 15-3 and 10-2-1 in the UFC. One no contest, not a draw. And he's a plus 330 underdog. And yeah, man, Yair's an amazing striker. He's got kind of like a lot of, taekwondo kicks and very creative elbows and crazy spinning attacks and stuff like that. And, he proved in his last fight, man, that he's really worked on his ground game. And he hasn't always had the best, the best takedown defense, but he did show that he's worked on his jiu-jitsu and he's very dangerous off of his back. And, he did hurt Josh Emmett in that fight as well. I think it was with a body kick, before he got taken down, and then he immediately locked up that triangle and he looked amazing, man. He looked really good. I love his striking. I think if this fight's on the feet, Yair definitely would probably win. That's my opinion. I think Yair's striking is that good, and Volkanovski's very good too, but he has the wrestling advantage. I want Yair to win this fight. I'm rooting for him. I like him a lot. I think he's a very exciting fighter, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. I'm gonna pick Volkanovski to get the win with his wrestling, but I'm making a 2-fight parlay and just putting a little bit of money on it. And yeah, that's all my picks, guys. So let's get into the bets. And so I made a 2-fight parlay that was Pantoja and Pantoja and Rodriguez. Sorry. And that's a plus 949. I just put like $100 on it, something small. That way, if the 2 underdogs pay off, I'll win about $1,000 almost. So, And then as far as my other plays, I got a play on Della Maddalena minus 180. That's a 1 unit play. I've got a Whittaker and ribovics parlay that's minus 109. And what else did I have? I know I added something. I added something else today and I didn't write it down. Sorry. I'm still waiting on the. There's a couple of fights that aren't on the card. You know, the tiara and saaiman fights aren't on Bovada yet. They don't have the lines up. Whenever those come in, I am going to. I haven't decided if I'm going to parlay both of them together, but I'm definitely going to try and have some action on tiara. But if I might just do a 2-fight parlay last minute. You know, saaiman and tiara. It'll probably still be, you know, probably won't be plus money, but it might be close. So whenever that rolls around, I'm gonna do that, and I do have a half unit play on ribovics as well. And I really wanted some action on Whittaker, so that's why I parlayed him and ribovics together. You know, it's a minus 109, like I said. And I still had to play on ribovics, but I was going to parlay Whittaker and jauregui together, and it was a minus 182. I was like, that's not a very good price, you know, 2 big favorites. So, and as far as the big parlays, like I said, I'm waiting on tiara and saaiman to come in. But right now I've got a Whittaker, jauregui, ribovics, nickal, and Maddalena parlay that's plus 305. You know, it's a horrible price for that many fights, but and then I added Turner and Menifield, and that's a plus 950. And then I added Pantoja to, you know, so yeah, if y'all don't know how I do it, you know, each time I say then add, that means I've already made the parlay for that. So add Turner and Menifield, that's plus 950. And then on another one, I added all those and added Pantoja, that's plus 2,441. And then after that, I made one that has Ross and Price added to it, and that's plus 9,774. And like I said, waiting on the other 2 lines to come in so I can add them to the final parlay. And I'll probably put together some other ones with them, man. But yeah, that's all the picks, all the bets, man. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm up over 300 subscribers, man, and I do really appreciate it, and appreciate all you guys commenting and chopping it up with me and all that stuff. And can't thank you enough, man. You know, I haven't been doing this but since February, man. So I feel like I'm making pretty good progress, and been making some money too. So, what else? Oh yeah, one more thing while I'm here. I want to talk about these 2 fights they had switched around on the Strickland magomedov card real quick. So they switched out Bruno Ferreira's opponent from Razak Al-Hassan to Nursultan Ruzabov, which is a guy that I wasn't super familiar with. I went back and did do a little bit of research and everything. Seems like a legit fighter, man. I think he usually fights at 170. He's 6'4", so he's probably going to have a reach advantage here too. It doesn't have his reach on Tapology. He's 34, 8-2, so he's pretty damn experienced compared to Ferreira. And he looks pretty solid, man. You know, he's been getting finishes in pretty much all of his fights. So, well, let's look at it real quick. You know, I watched some of the tape on him, man, and I like him. I think he has a really good shot at winning this fight, especially if he uses his wrestling. He's got 12 wins by knockout and 20 by submission. He's only ever won 2 fights by decision. So, and he's fought all over the world. And yeah, I'm gonna be going with him, man. Just because I'm really not all that high on Ferreira, because I think he's just, you know, he's got good striking and he's just a very heavy hitter. And I think that if somebody can get him to the ground, they get a good shot at winning this fight. And we've never seen Ferreira out of the first round, so I'm gonna take Ruzabov to get the win on short notice here. I'm gonna say he uses his wrestling and just controls it for 3 rounds and plays it safe. or maybe gets a submission. But I'll take him to win by decision, just so you guys know. And there's one more fight, I believe, unless they changed up another one I don't know about. I'm too busy because I do these so early, guys, that sometimes I don't even realize they switched a fight around until the day of the fights because I'm already working on the next card because I do these so early. But they added Joe Anderson Brito versus Weston Wilson to this card, and we all know about Joe Anderson Brito. He's 28 years old, 5'8", with a 72-inch reach. He is they don't have the lines up for fucking. I don't know if they have the lines up for this one on there either, so I don't know. But I know Brito's a favorite. He's going to be. He's 14-3-1, and in his UFC debut, he did. He came out and had a really good first round against Bill Algeo, and he kind of gassed. It was on short notice. Since then, he's came out and he finished Arlie Feely and beat Lucas Alexander, who did look very good in his last fight. He submitted him. He's a finisher, man. He's very well-rounded, very powerful, and he is going to be at a significant size disadvantage here, but he's only going to have Wilson's only going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. But from what I've seen on Weston Wilson, he's a pretty tough guy. His last weigh-in was 149 pounds, so I don't know if he has trouble making weight or what. I didn't look into all the details on that, but he's got kind of like a karate type style with his striking, but most of his wins have been by submission. He's got 11 wins by submission, 5 by knockout. His LFA record, he was 0-3 in LFA. He had 1 win in Bellator, and he did go and get some wins in some other. One of these was a boxing match. He got some wins in some other organizations, a lot of stuff that most people never heard of, and then he had a fight in XMMA in July last year, and he got knocked out in that. So he did win a fight in XMMA though before that with a side choke. I'm not completely sold on him, man. He's a pretty exciting fighter. His fights are always fun to watch, but on short notice, I'm definitely going to be going with Joe Anderson Brito to get the win. I'm going to say he wins by a first round knockout. But we just don't really know enough about Weston Wilson, man, because here lately what's been happening is that, they be throwing these guys in on short notice and then they ended up beating, the UFC veterans that they get thrown. And it's because, and the veterans are always a big favorite. And it's just because not everybody's super familiar with some of these guys. A lot of people don't pay attention to the regional scene. I do, but man, it's just, if we had more guys in on 3 or 4 days notice, I mean, I know most people out in the world do have time to do their research. Me, I'm on a pretty strict schedule of doing one video onto the next, doing one video onto the next. So I'm constantly on the next card, and I don't have a whole lot of time, to go out of my way. And, especially after I've already done a video on the card and they throw people in, a few days after. And I don't usually have a whole lot of time to go back and do the research on that. But I try to. I do a little bit, but yeah, man. So I guess that's it for me, guys. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I hope one of you guys wins that contest, man. I'll announce if anybody won on my next video. So appreciate you guys. I'm out of here.